Hello and welcome back to the January Street Studios tutorials. In today's lesson, we will focus on the Beatmaker in our DAW Soundtrap. I will be guiding you through the process of creating several different common drum beats in this lesson. We could jump right in, but you should probably know a few key words that I will use during this lesson. Music has its own language, and without these words, you will be lost. Our first term is 16th note. Some people say it's faster than eighth or quarter notes, but that is not really true. Faster means tempo, but a 16th note just lasts less time than a whole, half, quarter, and eighth note. In fact, it's half as long as an eighth note. You can recognize a 16th note by the two bars or flags on the note stem. The same is true on the 16th rest. Overall, a 16th note or rest lasts 1/4 of a count. It would take 16 of them to fill a 4-count measure, and 4 16th notes would take the same amount of time in music as 1 quarter note. The next term is Beatmaker. This is a tool in a DAW that allows users to sequence drum patterns. Basically, you make sick beats with it. A sequence is a series of musical notes or beats played in a particular order. It's not random, it's all by design and planned. The next term is dynamics, which is a musical word for volume. It is the variation of loudness or intensity of a section of music. This will be very useful to know when adding beats to a song so they balance out and one does not overpower the other. And the last term we have is subdivision, which is dividing a larger beat into smaller, equal parts. Sort of like cutting up a whole pizza in half, then those pieces in half, then those pieces in half, and then those pieces in half. In this picture, you can see the whole note divides into 2 half notes. Each half note divides into 2 quarter notes. Each quarter note divides into 2 eighth notes, and 2 eighth notes divide into 2 16th notes. It does go further, but we'll save that for another lesson. Subdivision is crucially important when coming up with beats for music and using a DAW to make the music. So now that we are familiar with the same musical language, let's start making those sick beats. We begin by clicking on the Patterns Beatmaker here in the middle. You could also click on the Add New Track, then Drums and Machines, and then the Beatmaker. As we see, there are lots of empty squares, some numbers, some words, and some knobs. You should know that kick is usually a bass drum. Hi-hat open is when the hi-hat pedal is up and the cymbals are apart. Hi-hat close is when the pedal is down and the cymbals are close together, and snare is a snare drum. You can always redefine those instruments or add another and choose from a long list of possible sounds. Most times they are parts of a drum set. You can also click to change the instrument and see all the possibilities for drum kits, drum machines, percussion instruments, and process sounds. I recommend you take a few minutes when you finish this lesson to click on as many of these as you can to hear what they sound like. Before we continue, it's very important that we understand what these squares do. We could randomly click on them, but we want to be smarter than that. Each measure is subdivided into 16th notes, which are 16 squares. There's a little gap between each group of 4 to show where each count is grouped. Click on one to highlight it, and it makes the sound play. For this exercise, click each square that I click to make the same beats. You can always pause at the end of each section if I am moving too fast. At the end, your music should look and sound like mine. Take a moment to press pause, compare my music to yours, and make any corrections at the end of each section. My template for you already has the instruments picked and the names of the beats, so you can close this for now. The first beat we will create is the pop rock beat. It's very common in all genres of music, and one of the first beats that most drummers learn to play. The kick will be on count 1 and count 3. The snare will be on count 2 and count 4. And the closed hi-hat will be eighth notes, so the first and third square of each count. Pause now if you need a moment to fill the squares. Now let's repeat this measure so it plays 4 times. The next beat is the 16th note beat, very similar to the pop rock beat. The kick and snare are the same, but the hi-hat is now every square for 16th notes instead of 8th notes. Pause now if you need a moment to fill the squares. Let's repeat this measure so it plays 4 times. This beat will be a Motown beat. Motown was a huge music influence that started in the 1960s. Lots of music today has similar beats or sounds that came from this era. The kick is a bit more interesting in Motown. Click the count 1 first square, count 3 third square, and count 4 third square. The snare will play on the first square of count 1, 2, 3, and 4. The hi-hat will be an 8th note pattern, just like the rock pop. Pause now if you need a moment to fill the squares. Let's repeat this measure so it plays 4 times. This will be the Soka Beat, often found in Latin music. The kick is a driving force on this beat on the first square of counts 1, 2, 3, and 4. The snare has a different part, count 1 fourth square, count 2 third square, count 3 fourth square, count 4 third square. And the hi-hat again is like the rock pop and Motown 8th note patterns. Pause now if you need a moment to fill the squares. Again, let's repeat this measure so it plays 4 times. The hip-hop beat will require a few more tricks than the others. This will be a 2-measure beat instead of a 1-measure repeated beat. Let's start with the kick. Measure 1, count 1, first and fourth square, count 3, third square. Measure 2, count 1, first and fourth square, count 3, third square. Next, we'll do the snare drum. Measure 1, count 2, first square, count 4, first square. Measure 2, count 2, first square, count 4, first and fourth square. This slight change will give a bit of variation. And finally, we'll do the hi-hat with the same 8th note pattern we've done several times for both measure 1 and measure 2. If yours does not look like mine yet, pause and make it look like this now. Now we start to pull out some fun tricks. Close this Beatmaker, then mouse over the beat and click Edit. From here you will go to Quantize, then 1/16 swing. A pop-up will appear for the swing amount. Just click Done. What that does is it makes the 4th 16th notes of the kick and snare hang back a little, providing a bit more flavor. If you didn't get all that just now, go back and repeat this section with those instructions. When you are done, you can repeat these 2 measures to fill the 4 measures like the others. The last beat we will do is the double kick offset. This is a 1-measure pattern, the same hi-hat, 8th notes as rock pop and several others. The snare is on count 2 and 4, both first squares, but the kick has a little variation. The kick will play on count 1, first and third squares, count 2, fourth square, count 3, third square. If you wanted to, you could also add the 1/16 swing in the quantized settings. And there you have it. 6 of the most used basic drum beats that will fit many genres of music. In a later lesson, we'll make a few variations to some of these beats and add drum fills for the cadences. See you next time.